where there's problems lie the greatest opportunities. Those who have the wherewithal to really dig into a problem and understand a problem are the ones that generally can make the most return. And in this particular instance, I think that this property absolutely falls into that category.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association, providing benefits and services to real estate investors and rental property owners for over 48 years. With your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group.
This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com. Hello and welcome to episode 140. I'm sitting here today with Justin Richards and Aaron Leonards, and by the time you hear this episode, they will have closed on a 144-unit Class C apartment complex in Memphis, Tennessee. They had to raise $1.3 million to close on this. Boy, do they have a lot of stories to tell. We're going to kind of go from how they found the property, how they got it under contract, the due diligence process, and then just getting to close, getting across that finish line, because that's always a struggle. No matter what, it's always a struggle.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Justin, Aaron, thanks for being here today.
And thank you for having us.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you guys because it's fresh. The pain is fresh.
To say the least, yes.
Yeah. So,
but it's fun.
It's fun. So. It's fun, but it's not. Having gone through your first deal and getting to that closing line, I mean, nothing could have prepared you for that.
No.
Yeah. So we'll get into that, but let's talk about you guys first. I want to get to know you guys a little bit. I want our listeners to understand where you're coming from. Justin, we're going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello to all you fans out there. We thank you very much for listening to this. This is a great educational program, and it's because of shows like this that Aaron and I really got our feet wet when we did. I've been in or around construction the better part of my life. I'm in my mid-30s, and my partner and I started Grayson Capital Group after we worked for our final corporate job. We were sick of working for the man. We were flipping houses, and we were looking for opportunities, and we were listening to shows like this one, and it really it opened our eyes and caused us to really step out of our comfort zone. And we started traveling the United States, trying to learn as much as we possibly can. So coming from the construction background, I had the fundamentals down. Now it was time to put the 10 years of financial knowledge into practical use. That's the hardest thing. I mean, everybody reads books, and we think that we can apply what we've learned, but until physical application takes place, I hate to burst everybody's bubble out there, but you have no idea. It's a wonderful ride. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, but it is a ride.
Yeah, the real learning comes from actually doing it.
Getting your feet wet.
Yeah, so we'll get into how you guys did it. Aaron, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name's Aaron Leonards. Again, thanks for having us on. I have a background. I started in the military when I was around 19, fresh out of high school. I managed to work my way up to the top as I set my goal on my first cruise in 2001. We were over in Afghanistan.
Were you in the Navy?
Yes, thank you. And I was on the USS Theodore Roosevelt CVN-71 aircraft carrier. When I had entered the Navy, I didn't know what to expect. I just knew that it was going to be a wild ride and it was going to be fun. My uncles had been in the military, and they said they wouldn't change it for the world, so I thought I would put in my best effort and support my country. And we managed to get into 2 wars, Operation Enduring Freedom, I think. Yeah, that's what it was. And Iraqi Freedom as well. And after that, I decided that, I didn't really want to be clocking in, checking in all the time, especially with that much structure. I enjoyed the structure, but it was just, I want to create the structure, if you will. And so I thought, my uncles and everything own restaurants. They are high ups in corporate world. So I figured that's my next logical step was to go to college and get a corporate job, which I did, and found it was still less than fulfilling. And still I'm clocking in every day and doing something that I enjoyed, but didn't truly have passion for. So that's when I met Justin, like he had mentioned, and we had talked at the back of a Verizon store one day and said, this is the direction we want to take, real estate, and the rest is history.
You guys met in the back of a Verizon store?
Yeah, so it's an interesting story. I was getting ready to leave Verizon, and Aaron was out back on a break. And when we walked outside, I told him I was leaving to go be an assistant manager of a 328-unit apartment community, and I told him why. I've never believed in doing jobs for just a paycheck. I always chose my jobs that I was going to have to work at to give me a specific learning experience as well as a paycheck. So I was going to work for a property management company because I wanted to understand the systems and the processes taking place there, both on the management side and on the acquisition side. And it was an enlightening experience. So I did that for 6-7 months, and then by that time, Aaron and I had solidified what we were doing and how we were doing it, and we took our first investment capital for our first flip. And it's been an interesting ride since then.
There's so much going on in between there, but I want to get to the meat here, which is this deal you're about to take down. By the time people hear this, you'll have taken it down. How did you find this deal down in Memphis, Tennessee?
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Well, I had initially, yes, that one. But I had initially found the deal. I do a lot of the acquisition side and vet a lot of the deals, most of them. But I had found this actually calling on another property to vet it. And he had said it's already under contract. And he said, but I have another deal down the street that I would like to show you. So point being there is make sure you have good relationships with brokers. I'm just going to put that in there real quick, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, that's how we basically found this. It wasn't on market. It was an off market deal.
To expand a little bit on that, for those of you who are new listeners, it took us a while. So we went out and we found a wonderful mentorship. So we were able to ask lots of questions. We partnered with a company called Think Multifamily out of Texas, and we created good relationships here. And through those relationships, we started developing broker relationships. And it took Aaron and I about, 80 plus deals, and we had been to more than 10 best and finals in 4 states to find one that made financial sense.
Define for our listeners what a best and final is.
Best and final is, so initially when you get all of your paperwork and you start to vet a deal, just like a home, you look through it. It's kind of the reverse. In a home, you put your bids and then you go into due diligence. You do that here, but because of the magnitude of the deal, you have to do quite a bit of due diligence before actually submitting. So most brokers require you to, and you should, physically go tour the property so that you can physically see the properties that you're getting into. You see the condition of the property, so there's no surprises. Which we had to do many times before we found this particular property. And once you see the property and you vet it, you submit what they call an LOI, or a letter of intent. And that letter of intent is a non-binding agreement that basically states the beginning terms of your contract that will be drafted, or the purchase and sale agreement. And in most cases, especially in this market, brokers know that they can get a higher price. So now that they have a baseline, they go to what they call a best and final. And what they do is they take maybe the top 3 to 7 people or more, depending on broker and depending on market, and they say, sharpen your pencils and do better. So you have to do that. And then you submit a best and final, which is the final word. They discuss that with their ownership group, and a decision is made. You get a wonderful phone call saying your offer has been accepted, and you start working towards the negotiation of your PSA, or your purchase and sale agreement.
Yeah. So to sum that up, the brokers want to make sure you're serious when you put in that letter of intent. So they expect you to come and look at the property. Even if you're out of state, you need to get on a plane, come look at that property, make sure you're comfortable with it, because they don't want you submitting a letter of intent and then saying, oh, well, we'll come look at it if our offer is accepted.
And I have to say, on top of that, they also send out a document that heavily scrutinizes you and your group financially and looking at your capabilities, i.e. they're looking for how many deals have you closed? Have you ever walked away from a deal and why? How are you going to be funding this deal? And they ask a lot of really in-depth questions, which is why, as I stated before, a team is absolutely imperative here. Most people, unless you're independently wealthy, would have a really challenging time getting through a best and final, because they want to know, have you identified a property management group? Have you talked to that property management group? Have you identified a bank that you're going to be working with, and what type of terms have you already discussed? They want to know all this stuff because that speaks to how much diligence you've actually put in prior to the actual due diligence period.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com. So Justin Richards and Aaron Leonards, they're looking at you and they're saying, what have you guys done? How do we know that you guys are serious buyers? Now, this is your first big deal, like personally, that you guys have done.
Correct.
How is it you were able to pass that scrutiny?
I would say team. Aaron and I made the relationship with Mark Kenny and his family in Texas, and with that came broker relationships. With that, they have more than 3,000 units, property management relationships. So it's all about, in life, it's all about relationships. It's all about that warm handoff. Instead of just cold calling people and saying, hey, I'm special, you have a friend or a contact of yours that has that relationship, make that phone call or send that email and say, hey, I know these guys, I'm working with them on this project. And with that comes their reputation. So it speaks to the ability to close a deal. And that's what brokers are ultimately looking for. Everything leads up to your ability to close a deal.
Yeah, so you plugged into a team that had all of this stuff lined up, so that the criteria by which the brokers would be judging you could pass you would fit into every box. Absolutely. You had a management even though it's not your management company, it was the team that you plugged into, was the management company they would use.
Correct.
You had their financial strength backing you, their track record, their history.
Yes.
And that seemed to have made all the difference.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and it seems, going down a little bit down the road, backing up a little bit, because I know when Justin said, jumping on a plane and stuff, and a lot of people to that point would be like, I can't jump on a plane. I can't afford to jump on a plane every time I find a deal that looks good. More importantly with that's why we're hitting on the team. The team is pretty much what's got us into probably 95% of our markets, with the exception of Grand Rapids, which we can handle ourselves here. But more importantly, they would ask who's on your team, who have you had look at this property, and we haven't had to go down and look at every single property. We wish we could, but also vetting with the broker that, I'm working with this property management company. They're very well known. If they go look at the property and give me feedback on that property, will that suffice for me touring it initially before we get to, i.e. best and final, or, submitting LOIs and things? A lot of times that will suffice if you're with a very reputable management company that they know.
Mm-hmm. How many planes did you guys jump on, and properties did you visit before you landed on this Memphis, Tennessee property?
We had been to, Florida 3 times.
And
We've
the
been-
entire state of Florida. So
Yeah.
we got in the car and drove the entire state of Florida. So
If we're going to hop on a plane and spend money to go somewhere, we're going to take that opportunity to build and develop our relationship. So we had been to Florida, we had been to Texas, we had been to Memphis,
Arizona.
Arizona. So, I mean, we've been to a lot of different markets, and just every time it becomes a game. It's kind of fun. You know, people can look at it as work. We don't. You know, we're hopping on a plane to go visit beautiful areas and learn everything we can about those areas. So for us, it doesn't feel like work. You know, I get to hop in the car with my best friend and drive, 7, 8, 10 hours down to a property and spend time down there, have lunch, meet with a couple brokers who are also wonderful people and property managers, and just develop these wonderful lifelong relationships. You know, if I can say one thing about multifamily investing, it's almost like marriage. You know, when you get in with these partnerships, you're meeting people and developing relationships for life. I mean, a lot of these deals are 5, 10, 15 years, and nowadays marriages don't even last that long.
That's true. Yeah, these business relationships are lasting longer than many marriages. If you are thinking of leaving your W-2 job and becoming a full-time real estate investor, one of the greatest costs you must consider is healthcare for you and your family. When I made this transition 5 years ago, I found the whole healthcare insurance process to be confusing and frustrating. That's why I'm glad I met Chad Creasy at RCB and Associates. Chad is a professional health insurance agent who helps real estate investors and small business owners understand and choose their best healthcare options. And best of all, his services are covered by the insurance company and won't cost you a dime. If you're expecting a change in your healthcare insurance coverage for any reason, then you owe it to yourself to contact Chad Creasy at rcbassociatesllc.com. So how many offers then did you guys make and best and finals did you go through before you got to this one?
we had to have vetted over 100, 150 deals probably since January.
So since January of 2018.
At least.
Okay.
Yeah, before this deal, we were probably around 80. We had vetted completely 80 deals. We had participated in, or we had been in 15 or 18, I believe. We've submitted LOIs, and we had been to 10 best and finals.
So it had to be frustrating to lose out over and over and over again. What kept you guys going?
There's a phrase that one of our wonderful mentors, Tammy Mitchell, will always say, and it's one of my favorites, is regardless of what happens, you got to keep showing up. You have to keep showing up. You're not going to get it on the first one, the second one, maybe even, I know a company that went through 190 deals last year and didn't get one of them. And they have a lot deeper pockets than even we do. So that says something. And also make sure that you know kind of, we're lifestyle investors. There's a couple different styles of investors. Know what kind of investor you want to be, because that will also help you find markets.
What does
that
that
you
mean,
want to
a
be
lifestyle investor? What
in.
does that
Lifestyle investor, we like to invest where we like to visit and vacation. So Florida, Minnesota, I have family in Ohio, Tennessee. So we invest in those locations. Justin has people in Jacksonville. And so we like to invest in those areas so that way we can vacation there. And, you know, it's this thing that the government lets you do. It's called writing it off. So it's great.
So you invest, your investments fit into your lifestyle.
Yes.
You don't make your lifestyle fit into your investment. So
Right.
that's an interesting philosophy. What pushed you over the edge on this particular best and final? I mean, how many other groups were you up against, and why did you guys end up getting the deal on this one?
So this particular one was an off-market deal, and most people think that off-market means you're the only one looking at it. In the commercial real estate world, that's just not true. These brokers have developed a lot of relationships. So if it's an off-market deal, you might be competing with 5, 10 people. In this case, we had 3, so it was a little bit smaller than most, and we had the strongest chance at closing compared to our other 2 people putting in offers on this one. So we had, as a group, we had closed another property down the street, less than a mile and a half away. And that property was already producing. It was with the same property management group that we were going to be leveraging on this property.
So you had plugged into a team that was well known to the brokers.
Correct.
Had a track record right in that area.
You'll get very little pushback or very little questions about yourself if you have a amazing team, or if people have bought in that area. They're less likely to vet you personally to the extent that they normally would if you don't have anybody there.
You made it through the best and final. They accepted your letter of intent. What happens at that point?
Now comes the fun stuff.
We thought it was, unicorns and everything. Afterwards, your team just takes over and you guys don't really have to do much. But Justin will explain what really happens.
Isn't there an app?
Yeah, it's an app. And the money tree, you have to start growing that quickly.
Lots of fertilization.
Yep.
It was an incredible experience. The due diligence process and the process of closing the next 90 days were just an incredible process. Very stressful, but wonderful in the same time. So once you get an accepted LOI, you start negotiating your purchase and sale agreement. Purchase and sale agreement is a very long document that outlines all of the stipulations that will secure that property under contract and will be held accountable.
And generally that will be produced by the seller, not you.
Yeah,
really?
It's a control issue. It doesn't always have to.
Well, yeah. So wait.
Most of the time.
Yeah, let me
prefer that.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Let me just say this. It's done both ways, but usually it's whoever writes the contract is the one who has the upper hand.
Yes.
So
Unless you have a lawyer like ours.
You definitely want to be able to write the contract, but there are groups out there that will absolutely kill the deal. Mm-hmm. And the idea is who writes the contract is the one that can put all of the stipulations in that you have to follow, and then your lawyer has to pick the contract apart to try and find all those clauses and either accept them or do what they call redline. And generally, you'll spend anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks or more going back and forth in red lines, which is basically negotiating over certain points in the contract, whether it be timelines. Let's say if you have to do testing on the property, how does that take place? Can that information be shared afterwards? I mean, if anybody has the opportunity to read a PSA, it's incredibly enlightening. It'll put you to sleep, but
PSA, purchase and sale agreement.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And it really is an incredible document, what it covers, what it allows. And that was a long learning process. I mean, we went back and forth probably 10 times before we actually came to terms on an agreement, and the price changed during that process. So as you're negotiating this purchase and sale agreement, you're agreeing on terms. And in this particular property, we'll talk more about this later, there was a fire, and that fire costs money to rebuild, and they hadn't rebuilt it yet. So now who's going to rebuild it? How's it going to be rebuilt? Is the money going to be set aside in escrow, or are they going to start doing it beforehand? How does that work? All of that.
Or are they just going to take the proceeds and you deal with it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things that have to be negotiated through this process.
Yeah, you start seeing all the little questions that you sort of overlooked initially, but are very important when it comes time to who's going to pay for it. So the contract and the redlining and the back and forth between attorneys, it's very important. It's also very expensive because you're paying your attorney by the hour to fight. It's almost a game that attorneys play just to charge both their clients more money, because they know that some of the stuff they put in there is just never going to fly. And the other attorney's going to, it's ping pong. How much did it cost you to get through the attorney phase?
A little over $15,000, and it ranges. I've heard it as high as, I've heard it as high as 35 or more. And it all depends. I mean, this was a relatively simple project. There's other projects that you can read about. You know, if you look at, take, for instance, our president, Trump, if you look at some of the deals that he structured in New York City that had 4 or 5 ownership groups all debating over costs, I mean, it can get incredible. But the biggest thing here is to pay attention to the details. I think we're here to talk about our learning lessons, and in the PSA was one of our biggest learning lessons. We allowed a critical piece to be negotiated out, which states that the selling party has X amount of time to deliver all of the deliverables, which are, for those of you who don't understand, is almost 4 pages, 12 font of things that they need to get to us so that we can make a smart decision. Everything from insurance, past legal issues, all of your financials,
utility bills for the
yeah.
past couple of years, bank statements, all that.
Everything
all the due
has to be
diligence
looked at.
items,
I mean, we have hundreds of documents that had to be poured through for this, and all of that has to be stipulated in the PSA. In our case, their lawyer negotiated that out, and I did the majority of the work on this because Aaron continued vetting deals for our next opportunity, and I missed that. That was a big mistake. Later on down the road, we got to a point where it had taken them over a month and they were still producing documents. So I found out,
mind you, your money is going to become hard at that time as well. So keep that in mind, that timeline of when your money becomes hard.
We'll talk more about that in a second.
You had lost the point in the contract that said, hey, your money is not going hard until you've had time to look at all the due diligence that they have to provide.
Yes.
Okay.
So
we still didn't have documents.
So you were facing a situation then where your money was going to go hard, but you didn't have all the information you needed.
And they weren't producing
Interesting. Okay.
And we were fighting with them to produce certain things.
So when money goes hard, what does that mean?
Now we can talk about that.
Define that, yeah.
So there's that term hard money is being used a lot more in today's current market. So it's something that is very appealing to both ownership group and brokers, basically showing that you have a lot more on the table that would hold you into the deal. There's people that are allowing money to go hard day one, which means, let's say you're getting into a $10 million deal. You're going to let a couple $100,000 go hard day one, which means, hey, I'm so confident that this deal is going to go through and that we're going to make it happen that I'm going to give you that money. And if I can't make it happen, then you keep it.
Yeah, it's not a good faith deposit.
It's
a payment.
It's a payment.
Be willing to lose it is all I got to say. Be willing to lose it.
For those of you who don't understand, that hasn't been the norm. Generally, the norm is you will go into due diligence. Your due diligence period will be around 30 days. That's another negotiating point. And at the conclusion of your due diligence, once you've went through the property, you've made sure there's no structural issues or no really big ticket items.
Boogeymen.
Yeah, no boogeymen hiding in the closet. Then your money will go hard because now you have all of the evidence and facts to make a intelligent decision.
All right. So how did you, in this case, you didn't have all the information before your money went hard. So what did you do?
Got all the really important information that we could first. And just, it's all about organization. You get so much documentation thrown at you during the due diligence period. Even with a wonderful team, it's really hard to get through all of it. So you have to prioritize. For those of you who haven't dealt with large multifamilies, I'll compare it to a home. When you walk into your first home, you're looking for plumbing issues, electrical issues, foundation issues, structural issues
as your first one.
And those are the main things that you really want to pay attention to, because those are the big ticket items, or HVAC, your heating and ventilation. That's going to cost you an insane amount of money if you miss them. And then you take that valuation, say on a house, and your heater goes out, it might cost you $3,000 to $5,000. Now times that by 144. And that's the type of decisions that you don't want to make or miss.
Right. You have to make sure you budget. Okay. If I've got 144 heaters or furnaces or whatever they might be in Memphis,
Air conditioners.
You need those. What do I need to budget for my capital improvements every year? What condition are they in? Have they been replacing them regularly, or are they all 25 years old and ready to croak?
Mm-hmm. Which was the case in this property.
So they had not been keeping the ACs up to date?
No, this particular property, our property manager said the wallet was closed pretty much the day that they closed. And the property management company had to fight for every penny they got. And
Did you tell them a story about the pictures? How they would fix things?
So the property management company, every year you get audited by your bank. They have millions of dollars on the table. So they audit the properties, and when they go through their property and look at things that could be potentially an issue for the asset, they would send pictures to the property management company and go, okay, well, these things have to be fixed. The property management company would call the owners and said, we need to fix these items. Well, did they take pictures? Yeah, 2. All right, cut those limbs and fix those gutters, nothing more.
Just
that's the
what's
way
in the picture.
Exactly. So that's the way this place had been managed, and it's truly sad.
Did they have an FHA loan? Is that why they had to have the lenders come in and do the audit?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay.
No, they didn't. And but I guess that's a typical thing for Wells Fargo, is what the property manager was telling me. And I don't know if it was yearly, but they said that they would get audited fairly regularly. And just come out, have a local person take pictures and send them back to.
So this was an undermanaged property. This was one where the owners weren't really putting money back into the property. So you could pretty much assume that, hey, you're going to have to put some extensive capital into this property to get it up to market value. I mean, I'm sure that's probably your game plan here, value add.
So that's a
type deal.
That's an understatement on this one. I'll go into another learning lesson, since that's what we're talking about here. In Memphis, they're trying to regentrify the area. And for those of you who don't know that, that's basically they're trying to pump money into the communities to better the communities and lure more people back to Memphis. And they can't do that directly, so they have to do that indirectly. And they do that through what's called a pilot program. And Memphis's pilot program, this last year, they put $55 million into their local communities surrounding Memphis. And what they do is they take your purchase price, divide that in half, and your taxes are assessed off that value, essentially cutting your taxes in half. And then they hold that rate for the next 10 years. Now, those of you who have played around in real estate know that that's a large number on your line items. So when you get your taxes reduced, that increases your NOI and makes it a much more solid deal. Now that sounds great, but now comes why they do it. Part of the program is for them to reduce your taxes, you have to create or build amenities for the tenant base that are for the tenant base. It can't be things for the ownership group. It has to be lighting, landscaping, fixing up a pool area, adding a park for the tenants, a play structure. All of that stuff is what we're doing to get this pilot program, and you have to spend half the value of the property in renovations.
So if you buy a $10 million property, are you saying that they expect you to spend $5 million
Absolutely.
to improve that property?
Absolutely.
Minimum. And they're cutting your property tax in half to do so, but still, even then, it seems like quite an investment to put into the property.
You are correct. And if you were working on a property that was maybe a Class A or a Class B property,
this would fit anyway.
Yeah, I don't know that this would fit, but because Memphis is older communities, 60s, 70s vintage, primarily, now it's an opportunity because you're going to come into the property and have to do a value add anyways because the property is older. And
can you do interior work? Go through and
yes,
rehab the units, put in
it's
nice
interior
backsplash, and so it's interior and exterior. Basically any capital improvements.
Yes,
they call it technically the thing is called tenant benefit is what it's called, and so if you hear tenant benefit, that's what we're speaking of.
Now, the caveat to that is you can't spend the majority of the money on those interior improvements because obviously we know as property investors, interior improvements normally mean higher rents. They're not interested in that unless you're adding things that are making the tenant's life better. those are the high ticket items that they're really interested in. So in this particular property, we're putting over $60,000 in camera systems.
Security cameras. Huh?
Correct. We're updating the access panels for the security. We're redoing the pool. We're putting in a play area and benches and grill areas so that the community can be more of a community. We've worked with the property management group, and property manager has friends that are teachers, and they're going to come and do after school programs to help students in learning. One reason Aaron and I get along so well in this is both of us are extremely passionate about family. We love our family, and we're doing this so that we can spend more time with our families. And when we walk into these communities, whether it's a Class A or a Class C, it doesn't matter. The idea is to make that community such that you would feel comfortable living in that with your own family. And if you can't do that within your budget, or if it doesn't make financial sense to do that, well, it's probably not a good fit.
So I'm still trying to wrap my head around this pilot program. A lot of what you described, improving the pool area, adding playgrounds, those are things that will increase rents. I mean, it'll make your property more valuable. Are rents capped under this pilot program? Are you allowed to increase rents?
No, it's pretty much for the aesthetics of the property. In a nutshell, kind of what they're trying to achieve. I know we did more of a long-winded explanation, but it's mainly when you drive past the property in Memphis, they want to be able to look at it and be like, oh, that's a nice place. That looks like a nice, secure place. They have nice sight lines. They're improving the neighborhood basically, and improving, and that's what me and Justin strive to do. Like he had hit on before, that it's not that we're trying to go into a market and making it the highest priced. What we're trying to do is go in there and make it so that it's the best tenant experience we can provide. And like he hit on it, from an A to a B to a C property, there's obviously different amenities, but why can't we make little changes to make it so every tenant feels like it's a Class A property, if you will, and they're being taken care of to that caliber? And it's not difficult to do. It's just people don't do it.
It's all about value add. And it's not value add in the sense of the construction, but it's value add in the sense of the person. We've really lost our way when it comes to service. I don't think, baby boomers started it, but I think that it's falling by the wayside, and it's not just that group, it's every group that's really losing touch with what service truly is. So you want your tenant to be able to go to their friend's house or their friend's property and feel like what they come home to is better. And that doesn't need to have granite countertops. That just has to, it's the simple things. It's walking in and your property manager lifting their head and saying, "Hi, Sue. Hi, Bob. Hi, Jim. How's your day?
Is there anything I can do for you? Is there anything missing? Is there anything we've missed?" It's just, it's that simple customer service aspect. It really is. And that's what we have to get back to.
Yeah, or just having the lights work at night in the
Exactly.
parking lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back to this pilot program, because it affects a lot. It has ripple effects on the whole deal here. So what's the purchase price of these 144 units?
So purchase price was $3.2 million.
$3.2 million. Okay, so at $3.2 million, that means there's $1.6 million that the city of Memphis expects you to put back into the property.
Yes.
How do you budget for that? Do you build that into your loan? Do you get is there a special type of loan you have to get that accommodates for this pilot program?
So that's a wonderful question. And the answer is, because of the fire that took place at this property, there was an $800,000 budget set aside already from insurance that needed to be put back into the property. So when you look at 1.6 and 800's taken out, you really don't have much to make up. And we ended up adding a lot more. The property manager, Multi-South, has been absolutely amazing during this whole process. They've talked us out of more deals than they've talked us into, but they're incredible partners. Multi-South down in Memphis. They're one of the larger, David Shores. They're one of the larger property managers down there.
Okay, they were property management company,
and they've just been phenomenal. David said, "Look, guys, I was at this property 30 years ago. This is one of the best properties in the area. It has a lot of amenities. It has a great layout. It has lots of options for layouts. It's strategically placed. It's right next to 130 million square foot of buildings for commercial. It's right next to the airport. FedEx has got more than 32,000 employees there. I mean, it's a perfect location, and that's why it's being looked at so heavily by the city, and that's why the pilot program makes perfect sense there. That's the area you really want to build up, is where a lot of your jobs are.
Right. Okay. And it seems like the more you talk about it, the more hair there is on this deal, but also the more opportunity there is, because $800,000 in fire damage means that you have a lot of offline units right now.
Yes.
Unless that fire happened in the laundry room or something, but I can't imagine
we have
that
16,
being an $800,000 cost.
Yeah, 16 units right now are going to be completely redone. And the good thing about this is David Shores, as we've spoke of, he helped spearhead this program, and he's done over 25 of them. So that's another point to your point with not having all the information and things like that. It was very helpful to have the property management that currently manages the property has had their hands tied, so it's not their fault. So it's not a management issue. It's, like you had said, the owner's issue. But having them that have lived and breathed it for the past 10 years, and then we're missing documents and things, it's a little bit easier.
So David Shore and the property management company that you're bringing in, which is Multi-South?
That's David Shore.
That's David Shore.
We kept
were they managing the property already?
Yes.
Okay,
and
so
that's what made it
they're
easier.
Familiar with the property. Their hands were tied because the owners just didn't want to give them the money to do what needed to be done.
Most people that live in multifamilies and beginners who invest in multifamilies think that the property manager has all of the control. And to a point, that's true, but they're not the ones that have the wallet. They are managed by the group that owns the property, and they have to succumb to those wishes. So if you have an ownership group that's unwilling to or unable to do anything, the property manager can want till it's blue in the face, but it's not going to change.
And they can be the best one in the area and get a bad name because of it. Because people look at that property and go, oh, they're managing that. Why would I want them to manage my property? That's why it's very imperative you know the backstories of things.
So this is good. David Shore, Multi-South, they know the property. It sounds like he's done 25 of these pilot programs in the past, so he knows how to work with the city. That's instrumental, because I'm sure there's a lot of compliance. The city's going to want to know that money is being deployed.
Correct.
How did that affect your loan? Because, all right, I know you had to negotiate the $800,000 from the insurance proceeds into the purchase agreement. But there's still another $800,000. Did you get some sort of bridge loan to cover that, or where did that $800,000 come from?
Yeah, so generally on most properties, you like to go straight to agency, but anytime you have less than 90% occupancy, you need to look at a bridge loan, because it's no longer a stabilized property. And with these units down, that is exactly what we had to do.
So they counted these units in the occupancy, which meant you fell below 90% occupancy.
Correct. Now, in this particular area, as I was going to say when you asked it the first time, I saw a squirrel or something. Where there's problems lie the greatest opportunities. Those who have the wherewithal to really dig into a problem and understand a problem are the ones that generally can make the most return. And in this particular instance, I think that this property absolutely falls into that category. So most people would be scared off by that, but by digging in, we found out there's not a lot of new development on the multifamily side in Memphis, because it doesn't really make sense to spend $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 per unit to really upgrade a unit that much. It just is not financially feasible. So by us having the insurance proceeds, it gives us a strategic advantage in the area, because now we'll have 16 brand new units that we can bring online and we can offer to the community around us, which is something that there's not a lot of.
It'd be great for test marketing too, to see what type of finishes and things we can actually achieve. So it's kind of a bonus to us, because now we get brand new units in a Class C building that would never warrant that. Generally down in Memphis, if you have a fire and there's insurance and things like that involved, they generally just don't even rebuild them, because the redevelopment costs are or
It's cheaper. It's cheaper to tear the property down and take the proceeds.
So, how did you build that into the price? Because it sounds like if you've got 16 units that you can bring online, probably within 12 months.
Yeah.
That's going to add a lot of value to the property. Now, in this market, sellers want to capture that value in the sales price. And so there's always this push and pull. Well, why should we pay you for that value if it's not there right now? How did you guys negotiate that?
That was definitely part of the negotiation and why it took so long negotiating the PSA, because obviously the owner wants to rebuild those units and have those as brand new. And as the incoming ownership group, we don't want somebody doing construction that doesn't really care about the end result. All they're trying to do is add to the bottom line. So it's a tightrope. You know, you have to understand what's going to come, because you're probably going to end up overbidding a little bit from where the numbers should be, because you have to see the value and know what's coming. And we ended up taking that $800 off of the purchase price, lowering the cost. And we did that strategically because the pilot program obviously requires 50% of the total purchase price for pilot renovation. So if we can take $800 off the top line, it makes it
easier to hit that halfway mark.
Right. So, but you had to think about that.
Yes.
You had to think about your loan terms that were available when you were negotiating the actual purchase price.
Absolutely.
Well, and in loan terms too, keep in mind with bridge loans generally, at least the ones that I've seen come across, they will cover most, if not all, of your rehab costs, and also they will cover the down units. So as far as to your point with the income part of it, with those 16 units, we still get paid for that through the raise and through the loan. So we don't really lose anything. We're getting paid the same without those being on. We just obviously owe them back, them for dispersing that. So the line doesn't drop. You know what I mean? The income doesn't drop considerably because those are off. We'll still maintain.
Well, most people's insurance company covered lost rent.
Lost rent. Yep.
Yeah. And so did you take over that insurance policy? Like, are you receiving lost rent?
No, that was something that they kept strategically.
Okay. So just let's be clear on the loan terms, because we're talking about a bridge loan here. So for those who don't understand what a bridge loan is, it's basically when you don't have a stabilized property, you need to put a good chunk of money back into it. You're going to get a shorter term loan that will loan you more money to put, the money you need to put back into it, but you're going to pay a higher interest rate.
Correct.
And you probably have 2 to 3 years before you have to pay that loan back.
Yes. So
And generally it's interest only in the beginning, and there's other ones. I'll let you go after this. There's other facets to that too. It's not, with bridge loans, it's not just because it's not stabilized. There can be that, maybe you're realizing a big gain and you're getting constrained by the agency loans as far as debt constraint. They won't give you the proceeds that you necessarily need, so it may drop it down to 65 to 70% on those. But I'm not going to go too much into that. But there is other avenues you will have to use a bridge loan for.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense in your situation, because that's the only way you're going to get a loan that makes sense.
Non-stabilized, absolutely.
Yeah. So how'd you get the bridge loan? Who's it from? Is it insurance?
There's tons of lenders. We ended up with a larger lender. And
who'd you end up with? Can you say?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Bancorp.
Bancorp. Okay.
BANCORP Bancorp.
So this is a heavily contested area. Back in 2008, when things fell through, these bridge loans were huge, and it's a great opportunity to make a lot of income in a short period of time, because you have to have the loan. You can charge more points on the loan, and it's a little bit riskier, but that's where they capitalize on. So to your point, there's large insurance companies that do this. There's large funds put together by family offices. It's a highly contested market. So generally speaking, when we go after agency loans, we have good relationships with our bankers, and we'll use the same bankers over and over and over again because we have good relationships. In this particular case, because there's so much at stake, we wanted as many opportunities to look at as possible. So we openly told our bankers that we were talking to each one of them and that we were trying to get as many quotes as we could because we were getting numbers as high as 9 or 10%. And
interest rate, 9 or 10%.
Interest rate, exactly.
Well, do you want to elaborate a little bit, sorry, on why, you want to tell the bankers that you're looking around?
So your bankers, like your brokers and everything else, are your best friend and our relationship. So there's only so many people out there that will actually do this for you, and they all know one another. So if you don't tell a banker and they go to one of their connections that they have a relationship with and ask them, and somebody's already asked them, you make them look bad. That's not what you want to do. This market may seem huge, but it's not. Everybody knows one another. So it's all about fairness and honesty. So when we talked to our banker, we told them, hey, here's the banks that these guys are looking at. We don't like the terms. We want to see if there's anything else out there.
It wouldn't have made the deal work initially at the first bridge loan that we had. So had we stuck with, like they say in the industry, stick with one lender, had we done that in this situation, we went from a over 9% interest on our first loan, our first bridge loan that was brought to us, all the way down to a 5.86. So on this instance, it was very good that we shopped it, but like I had said, like Justin,
it sounds like you upset a few.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not even upset. We let them know that we are shopping
So
this
you're
because
upfront
it's not
about it.
making it's not making the deal work. We have to go somewhere else.
Well, why were you guys doing this? Why didn't you bring in a loan broker to find this for you?
We did.
We did.
We had 3.
We had 3. Yep.
Oh, you had 3 loan brokers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's those are the individuals that we were creating the relationship with, and we told all of them.
And we're very close with all 3 of them.
Yeah, and we're very close with all 3 of them. We see them multiple times a year. There, 2 of them are out in Texas.
So they understood when we said that we had to shop this. They completely understood.
Well, yeah, and you do have to shop it because obviously there's a wide range of products out there,
Yeah.
and very few of them are going to accomplish what you need to accomplish in order to get the deal done. So,
Right. An agency, I wouldn't say, too much shopping. I mean, generally when they go to an agency loan, like we said, they know the same
and when
people.
you say agency loan, what do you mean?
It'd be
by
like a
agency
Freddie
loan?
or Fannie.
So Freddie Mac,
Yep.
Fannie Mae, those are agency loans.
Yep. And those will be, I mean, generally, if you have a good relationship and a good mortgage broker, you only need to go to one. You don't need to shop those for any reason,
Yeah,
generally.
Fannie or Freddie, the brokers don't like you to go.
Right, and there's no need
compete
to.
there because they're going to bring you the exact same thing.
Right.
well, yeah, there's only so many
Yeah.
that you can go to.
But once
whereas
you go outside the agencies, then you have a whole world. You've
Yes.
got insurance money, CMBS,
And if it's not
private
making your money,
funds.
your deals work, I mean, you have to do what you have to do. I got to feed my family ultimately, but the last thing I'm going to try and do is screw somebody. So, but I got to do what I got to do, and
Right.
they knew that.
Yeah, so you were brought. It sounds like you were brought a loan that was acceptable and worked within your numbers.
It was just shy of agency. I mean, it was amazing. Our broker said, "Are you guys sitting down?" He talked to 15 different lenders, and this one was actually looking at the property across the street and had found out about our opportunity. And he turned around and looked at the property and goes, "Man, I know that property. I want this deal." And called our broker and said, "Hey, I'm prepared to offer these amazing terms."
Here's the farm.
Yeah, and it was incredible. I mean, it honestly, it's what made the deal make sense.
Yeah, because it probably would not have made sense without
At
the right
9%,
loan structure.
not really.
No, so and at 5.8, probably 3-year balloon.
Oh, it's a 3-1-1, but our goal is 20.
3-1. You can extend it for 3-1-1.
Yeah, 3 years, and then you have
extend
plus
it another
one, plus
year.
one. But the
But you gotta
interest
pay
rates,
each time.
but the interest rates,
Yeah.
you'll get points for that.
Yeah, be careful when you go into that,
Yes.
that 1-1.
Yeah.
Because once you're past that 3-year term, the interest rate will
Yes.
skyrocket. And they plus on top of that, they'll probably charge you a big chunk of money to extend it.
Well, our plan here is bridge to agency, and we plan on using Bancorp for the agency debt. So there's no reason not to refinance out after 3 years. It'll be fully stabilized. The appraised value will be significantly higher than where we're at
And
right now.
Bancorp already knows it intimately, so
Yeah, there's
it's an
no
easy
sense
transition.
in redoing everything.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the most sense.
So, okay, so that's the loan. At what point did you actually go out and find your loan?
So that's interesting. When you're talking about this whole process and what we learned, bring your team members in early and often. All the books say it, and they say it for a really good reason, because your team members can really help educate you and steer you around potential pitfalls. So we brought the lawyer in right away. As soon as we got to the point where it looked like our letter of intent was going to be accepted or we were highly competitive, we had already brought it across the table of our loan broker. We had already got our soft terms on it to understand while we're underwriting it, what's a fair price to offer based on the loans.
What are soft terms?
Soft terms are basically, they are what they are. They're not hard. It's not locked in yet. They're basically, here's what we think we can get based on everything.
And that's good to submit with your offers if you can.
Yeah, when you submit your final letter of intent and your best and final, the more information that you can give the closing broker, the better. Again, they're looking at your ability to close, and the more information you give them, the better. If you said you've already identified a property management company and you're working with them and they've given you a budget, or at least a preliminary budget, they know that your numbers are going to be closer than somebody who hasn't. If you already have identified your loan broker and you already have soft terms, then you are going to have a higher chance of hitting your numbers. And also they're worried about retrading. And for those of you who don't understand what that means, it's, hey, we're going to give you $3.2 million, and then you get to the closing table and say, well, I didn't see that, and now I want to offer 2.8.
That also goes back to touring the property too.
Yes, all of that's tied together. That's part of the reason they want you to tour the property, because you can see a lot of these big ticket items. You can see a roof that looks like it needs work. You can see sidewalks or anything else that's just glaring at you that it needs work, and you can build those into your price so that there's a less chance to retrade, which is a bad word in the industry.
Yeah. So did you guys have to retrade at all?
No.
But you did have to argue over some points, like the insurance proceeds
Yes.
from the fire units.
Correct.
So at what point did you do? Because there's a order in which you want to do everything. Because you start spending money pretty quickly once you get a property under contract. I mean, obviously you already had spent some money. Well, maybe you hadn't gone out to see the property. At what point did you actually see the property yourselves?
Before best and final.
Okay, so before you got to the purchase agreement, you guys went out there. Mm-hmm. So you spent money there.
Yep.
I mean, airplane, hotels.
Yep.
Renting a car. There's some money being spent. You get the letter of intent written. You get to best and final. What point did you bring in your attorney and start paying him?
He gets brought in the second. He gets brought in generally before the final submission, because at that point,
the best. So do you bring in your attorney on the letter of intent?
We don't need to. The letter of intent is fairly boilerplate, but what we do want to do is start conversations, because at this point in time, you either have a pretty good idea or not. And talking to him and saying, hey, I got this property, here's what we're looking at doing, it gives him the more information before you submit, the better. But you obviously have to mind other people's time. So you don't want to bring property managers and loan brokers and all these people in if you're not serious, because they're only going to do that so many times before they write you off. But you need that information. So the lawyer might see something you don't, and if they can fix that before you submit your LOI, it's just one less thing you got to worry about. And it's one more point of strength going into your final submission. And then as soon as it's accepted, now it's the whole team. Property manager gets notified right away. Hey, we've been accepted. Here's our plan of attack. You obviously get started.
When can you be there?
Yep. You get inundated with documents that have to be went through by your team. You need to get the bank heavily involved now, because now it's not a soft term sheet. Now they have to go actually work with the bank and start narrowing down and getting some really hard numbers together. You have to work with the people on your team. And this is probably another learning lesson I should mention. When you raise money, start marketing early.
But legally.
Marketing early for investors.
Correct. Right. So people don't like 2 months left or 1 month left, hey, I got this deal, and now you have to hard sell them. The idea is to let the deal sell itself, as it should, because that's why else would you be buying it if it doesn't. So you can only legally share so much information prior to signing of contract. So initially, an email to your group saying, hey guys, we've identified a property that looks like it has a lot of character. It's in Memphis, Tennessee, and we're really excited to share it with you. And then once you get it under contract, then you can start selling more and more specific. But I think that was one of our biggest learning lessons, because we're down to the wire and we've been raising really, really hard for the last month and a half, pulling money from Israel, from India, all over, trying to make this thing happen. And that's a lot of work. And we put it on ourselves because we didn't know any better.
Right. It is a lot of work. I want to get to that, because the raising of the money, obviously we've talked about the loan. So probably 75-80% of your money is coming from the loan, but you're raising 1.3 million. Is it 1.3 million?
Yeah.
1.3 million. I want to get to that. But before we go there, I want to go back and I want to talk about what kind of money you guys had to pay and when, because there's a lot of money coming out of your pocket during this whole process.
Yes.
So, from the attorney, which cost you $15,000 just to do the purchase agreement, to an earnest money deposit. How much earnest money did you guys have to put down?
75.
So 75 earnest. And at what point did that go hard?
30 days.
30 days.
So you had 30 days. So that's 75, 15. I mean, pretty soon you're up over $100,000 that you guys have to come up with before the deal's even closing.
Yeah. So we're 225 into this before we hit the table.
Personally.
Personally.
Yes.
So there's an order at which you pull the trigger on spending this kind of money.
Yes.
And so just briefly run through that order. Like,
Okay.
This happens, you got to pay this. This happens, you got to pay this.
So ours is a little bit of a unique situation, and I'll talk to that. And you've also had quite a bit of experience, so I'll let you speak to your point. In our group, we use Dugan, our lawyer in Texas, all the time on multiple deals. We've closed on over 8 deals this year alone with him. So he allows us to push his payments to closing, which
So he'll
really,
defer
really
till
helps.
close.
Correct.
Good.
And that's a good relationship. The first thing that has to go within 3 days of signing of the purchase and sale, you have to transfer the earnest money, which is $75,000. Now the
Or
bank
1% of the purchase price.
generally.
Yep.
This is another negotiated point. It can go up, it can go down, but generally speaking, around 1%.
So it sounds like they wanted 2% of the purchase
Yeah.
price.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And as you move a little bit farther along and the bank starts getting more and more serious, the bank wants to see that you're locked in with them. So they wanted us to put in $50,000 as a good faith deposit, basically stating, hey, you're not going to shop our deal and you're going to use us. So
Yeah, and in that 50,000, it also goes toward third-party reports and other due diligence
Correct.
that the bank is going to be doing. Yep.
yeah, not initially, but that's what it's for. And that's something I would caution new buyers against. So make sure that you have all of your due diligence done before you put that money up. Because once they start putting their third-party people into play, they're spending a lot of money. Our closing costs are almost $220,000, and that's all being spent.
And that's typical. Actually, I mean, that's cheap, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're before you pull the trigger on the bank, you want to have done your physical inspection and the majority of your due diligence, because those are things you can do and are relatively inexpensive.
Correct.
It's more time consuming than anything. But once you're satisfied with that, that's when you pull the trigger on the bank loan. But at the same time, you want to be working that bank loan so you know what your terms are going to be, so you can make sure your numbers
Aren't changing.
Aren't changing. So yeah, it's all timing is very, very important.
Correct.
So you pull the trigger on the bank loan. Now it's another $50,000 out of your pocket. You'll never get that back until you close. What else do you have to put money toward?
So something I didn't mention, but is something most people are going to is we have a relationship again with this property management company. Generally, if you bring in a third-party property management company to do the auditing, the lease audits, and the walkthroughs, that's an added cost.
Be $20 to $40 a door generally.
And that's something that if you're using somebody you don't have a relationship, that's going to be billed to you as soon as they're done. Where ours, the property management company, knows we're going to retain them because we have them on 3 other properties already in Memphis. So they didn't bill us for any of those. I think the only thing we paid for is plumbing. So that was really helpful, but not the norm.
Right. It helps to be on the inside with the existing property management company because they know what's wrong with
relationships,
the property.
relationships.
Yeah, and because your team had a record with them, there was a trust there that what they're telling you about the property is going to be pretty accurate.
Mm-hmm. Well, ultimately, they're the ones that are being held accountable. So they have everything to lose by not being 100% forthcoming.
Right. Mm-hmm. So... Okay, so a lot of money. You've already gone $225,000 out of pocket at this point, and you're closing Friday.
Yeah.
That's when you get a lot of that back. You get a lot of that back. So
You better get it all back.
yeah. So let's talk about raising the money because you touched on it. Where are you finding your investors? What kind of deal? What kind of investment is this? 506B? Syndication,
I believe.
Is it C?
Go ahead.
Well, yeah. So 506C means you can bring in sophisticated and accredited investors. You can advertise as well with a 506C. So tell me about that process.
This is probably the most interesting process because we talked about relationships throughout, and people don't invest unless they have relationships. And this is something that we should have put a lot more time into building prior to our first investment.
Absolutely.
Create relationships with people that have money that do investing and learn from them. Become part of your local groups. Our POA here in Grand Rapids is phenomenal for that. We have a multifamily meetup group that we go to. There's an REI group that's available here in Grand Rapids. All of these groups have wonderful people that invest. And go start building relationships. It's a lot easier when you have a Rolodex, let's say, of 30, 40, 50, 100 people that you can at least approach comfortably, that know you and trust you, that may or may not be able to invest, but more importantly, we all know people. And again, to the warm handoff, if they know somebody and they trust you, then they'll give you a warm handoff to that individual and say, hey, these guys really know what they're talking about. They're doing wonderful things. Give them 30 minutes and listen to what they have. And, we pitch the deal multiple times, generally through Zooms with 15, 20, 30 investors all over the world. And in our case, we have other people who are also helping us that are part of the GP or the general partners that are helping raise money. Rafi from Proud Communities is one of the guys from Israel who's a great friend of ours that we met through our group, and he's been instrumental in helping. Sean Na is another individual who's given us a ton of help, and these guys have large networks already, and they take a portion of the general partnership and then they bring their investors to the table, and it makes it a much more smoother process. For us, yeah, you can raise it all yourself, and that's completely possible. You could have family office money or some sort of instrument that you might use, like a fund. Those are pretty self-explanatory. The money's already there. But when it comes to the raising, this is where the relationships really come into play.
So you have other partners in this deal who are helping you raise the money as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So where you it sounds like you felt that you were somewhat behind the 8 ball when it came to raising money.
Absolutely. I think we got ran over by the 8 ball.
Yes.
So
And it's a big one.
Talk about, because when you start at the beginning and you're like, okay, we need to raise $1.3 million. Well, that's a lot of conversations. That's a big hill to climb. Talk about that.
Well, one thing too that we found a learning experience was one of our partners that we work with. He wanted to raise pretty much all the money. He was pretty confident in that. Mind you, we're 3 weeks from closing, so he had said, "Yep, I got this, guys. We got this." And, okay, so we wait a week, not getting the traction we thought. You know what I mean? And so going forward, that I guess my point is if there's going to be a person that is saying they want to do a lot of it or the majority of the raise, especially when you're in a tight time frame, make sure that that's vetted and make sure that they are, I guess, they can do that. And more importantly, that you don't pigeonhole yourself. Do advertise it to other people.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
At least initially. Yeah. And so...
Those eggs may not hatch.
Yes, exactly. No matter how good a relationship you have, bless their heart, they're wonderful people, and they can do it with time. But I think they were time constrained as well.
Oh, in August, we learned a lot about time frames and timing. August is not really a good month to raise money. Everybody's on vacation.
Yeah.
So it takes them a lot longer to look at the deal, to make a decision, and we were under a time crunch. Mm-hmm. So that's why we broadened our team to more people, and we were able to make it happen.
So how many sleepless nights did you guys spend thinking about that $1.3 million?
Until Saturday, I still have them.
I would say since the beginning of this project, really I haven't really slept much. Uh-huh. You know, there's one thing that I would have to say is true for anybody who has a heart or who has ethics. Anytime you're playing with somebody else's money, if you're not losing sleep, I would have to say there's something wrong. You know, we have an obligation to our investor base to do the best that we can do.
Fiduciary duty.
For them. Yeah, fiduciary responsibility. And that's tough when it's on your shoulders. And it does become easier over time because you have more relationships and, you know, more connections. But ultimately, you're still spending a lot of your money and a lot of other people's money. And if that doesn't weigh on you, I think there's something wrong.
That's something that a lot of people listening to this would have a hard time dealing with, like just the weight of raising other people's money and being responsible for that.
I completely agree. You can try to be as certain as you can, but there's never complete certainty. It's just impossible.
Well, I think a lot of it too it'd be, and I use this lightly, but it'd be a lot easier if I didn't know the people. You know, we have a lot of relationships with these people, with the people we are spending their money. And I mean, not that by any means would I want to lose anybody's money, but especially when you have a great relationship and you've taken time to build these relationships and then to just let it go to the wayside because you missed something or you have an error or you oversaw something or, it's just not acceptable. And then that's how we go through life. It's, missing little things. Yeah, it's going to happen, but it shouldn't.
Yeah.
So.
How many investors said they would invest with you and then fell through?
So
about 40% of them.
Yeah, we were basically told from our teams that have been helping us, and I believe this to be fairly accurate. If someone tells you they're going to raise $300,000, count on $150. I mean, take whatever they say and cut it in half because
unless they have a track record that's impeccable that they've never missed a note,
or they already have money, if they already have it in the bank. But until that wire transfer hits, you don't have it. You can have verbal commitments. You can even have written commitments. And until that money's in the bank, you don't have it. Period. End of sentence.
Through this whole process, I mean, you guys are closing Friday. I'm impressed that you're here and not just like scrambling around putting out fires. So what are some of the last minute fires you have to put out before you close?
I'm on the phone right now. Aaron's busy finding our next fire. He's vetting. We try to vet 10, 15 deals a week, and we try to put in at least an LOI a week.
So you're still out there making offers, even through this process. You're making offers. You're looking for the next deal.
This is a numbers game. You got to put in the numbers.
We were in a best and final last week in Grand Rapids. So
we'll have to talk about that because I think I know which one.
Yep.
But it's all about the last minute phone calls. Who trying to bring in a little bit more money, make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and make sure everybody's happy. You start now we're starting to work with the property manager. They're trying to set up a plan to hit the ground running so that, we close on Friday. On Monday, we have the ability now to start construction on those 16 units and get that ball rolling. How does that take place? What's being shipped in? What's being ordered? How's that going to arrive? Where is it going to be stored? How's it going to be deployed? I mean, there's so much
you're
that goes
teeing
into
up
that.
everything that needs to happen once you close.
Yeah.
Right.
To your point, timelines are absolutely everything. And the more time you can put into making sure things are structured, the less stress you have. I mean, we started teeing up a lot of this stuff months ago, and we didn't,
We're still stressed.
yeah, and we're months before close. But the more you can line up early, the easier the process flows when it comes time to execute.
What will you do differently next time
Start advertising earlier.
for the investors?
Well, and more importantly for you new guys out there, relationships.
Yes.
Our meetup group, we started our meetup group because we felt like there was a lack of relationships here in Grand Rapids. There was good groups, but you need to create relationships and like-minded individuals to talk to about what you're doing. Our POA does a great job, like I said, in REI, but they don't specifically concentrate on large multifamilies. So we started our group so that we could we're trying to pull people out of the woodwork. The more people that do what we do and can talk about what we talk about, the more good relationships and good connections we can have. And connections aren't just for money. They're also for deals. This deal in Grand Rapids was through a relationship.
So let's talk about your meetup group. When does it meet? What's it called?
It's under Think Multifamily, and we are September 19th. We try to do every third Wednesday of the month. Last month was a little different just because we had our mentors flying in. That was a one-off, but generally we're every third Wednesday of the month.
Okay, so I'll have this come out. So if you're listening to this on the Monday that it's released, which will be September 17th, this coming Wednesday, you guys will be having your meetup group here in Grand Rapids. This is a multifamily, an apartment meetup group. Where is it located and what time?
So
it's at 44th Street at the Buffalo Wild Wings down by the mall, Rivertown Mall.
Same place as the REI meetup.
Yes,
then?
correct.
Okay.
Same one.
And what time?
We're going to start at 5:45, do a little networking till about 6:15, and then it may run a little bit later on this one, just because we're having our lawyer from Dallas fly in, and he's going to be talking about syndication and how to raise money legally.
Oh, great topic. So where do people go to find out more about this?
you can go to meetup.com and search local meetups in your area.
More importantly, our
pop
website will have it on it as well.
Yeah, you can go to
and our Facebook.
GraysonCapitalGroup.com and go into events, and we post all of our events there as well.
Grayson, and spell Grayson?
GREYSON, Capital Group.
GraysonCapitalGroup.com. Is that the best way to get in touch with you guys, or you have a different way that
Absolutely.
you'd like people to do
That or Facebook, either way.
You're both on Facebook?
Correct.
Okay. And I'll have all this in the show notes too. So as we wrap it up here, you guys have been through, I'm sure, a grueling 3 to 4 months, because that's how long this process usually takes. You guys have been great about sharing, what you've been through. Looking back on it all, what would you say to listeners who are going to be going through the same thing?
First of all, like we went back to have your ducks in a row, have your team in a row. It's just imperative that you have to have a team. You're probably sitting back there right now saying, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do it. What can you do? What are you good at? And find the people that are at your, find the people that are your weaknesses and plug those people into your life. Also, when it comes down to meeting relationships and high net worth individuals, getting investors and things, I would say, and I've heard this many times, about 3 to 5 touches before you even start talking about money. That's very important. I've had people, as little as our meetup, bless their heart, but, hey, I got a deal. Could you know somebody that can fund it? That's not how you start a conversation with somebody, not necessarily even me, but a high net worth individual especially. They all have problems, and you got to figure out how to solve a problem for them. They have all the money in the world. Now, what's their problem? How can you help them? That's the biggest thing. Help people.
They're people too.
Yep.
And I would say my two biggest takeaways is resilience and persistence. This is a grueling process. You're going to go through a lot of deals, and just when you think it's not going to work for you, it does. But you can't stop 3 feet shy. You just got to keep pushing through. And that's the hardest thing for so many people, because you keep doing deal after deal after deal after deal. And it's like, you think there's something wrong with you. You think there's something wrong with your system. You'll go through all sorts of mental things, especially when you first start thinking that all these things are wrong. No, it's just persistence. The more and more you put into it, you will eventually make it 100% of the time, but you can't give up.
Great advice, guys, and congratulations on
Thank you.
getting to the finish line. I really appreciate you just sharing all the ups and downs, because no matter what, it's a grueling process, and you got to have some fortitude to get through it. So,
Yeah, man.
Keep showing up.
yeah, keep showing up. And congratulations on having that fortitude.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you
time.
very much for your time.
This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.